Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's kind of a dreary day. I appreciate you braving the weather. And I'd like to thank Webster and Dana for having me. I'm very honored, and I enjoy coming back to St. Louis any chance I get, so thank you very much. It's always interesting in this type of scenario when I talk about the work, because in my studio I have one hard and fast rule that I try to stick to. It's that I kind of refuse to edit the information that I'm dealing with. And you can kind of maybe see that in the development of the work. There's a refusal to edit, and there's just a reaction and an openness to respond. And I think that that's kind of interesting when you try to concisely sum up kind of everything that goes into the work in this type of lecture series. I'll go ahead and discuss a few ideas behind the paintings, and then hopefully you guys will have a lot of questions that you can be asking me afterwards. Hopefully some of you have some questions, right? So be thinking about that, please. And okay, so I'm going to read a short statement and just kind of go into it a little bit further. The process of constructing these paintings mirrors the construction of history, and furthermore the natural process of editing and gathering information. I start with architectural interiors, symbols, and marks that represent accumulated forms of information and memory. Once these marks are laid, there is a continuous reaction to the previous form and information. I use the combination of structure and expressive vocabulary that's inherent to painting as elements to formally define space and to express these intersections of a complicated contemporary society. It's not uncommon for the paintings to be as much as sometimes 18, 20 layers deep. After every series of marks, there's a physical application of medium that separates the imagery within the picture plane. Much of, if not all of the early information in the work becomes completely covered or obliterated, and the viewer is left with a painting that has been continually built upon the previous mark or action. Every action requires a reaction. I see these paintings as a way to reconstruct the physical history within the layers of the work. In history, as in these paintings, you can see through to some of the early influences. While some of those influences are completely invisible, although necessary to the finality of each piece. So, I guess I see that the construction of each one of these paintings as a chance to construct a real-time gathering of information. It's kind of a document for myself in the studio of the information that I'm dealing with, the emotions that I'm actually interacting with, and I try to express that. Like I said, I try not to edit myself, and through the process of kind of capturing things in a raw state like that, and then applying it and reacting to the previous mark that's been laid, I find that through doing that, a natural editing process kind of builds in each painting, kind of through formally addressing each piece. The piece kind of has a life and a history of its own, and it becomes, in my mind, kind of a living document, a document of my thoughts, emotions, feelings in a specific space and time. Each piece has kind of the onerous responsibility of kind of documenting this process, and that's kind of the way I see the development of the piece individually. Let's see. Reuters Guide for Good Information in 2001 put out a series of questionnaires, and they came back with an article saying that the present state of information, there's been more information produced in the last 20 years than the previous 5,000. We're bombarded with information in every every way and shape within our society. You know, this work is an attempt to kind of depict that various forms of information, you know, and depict specific memories that we have, and show how this information kind of intersects and bumps up against one another, you know. I see the architectural interior and the structures you find throughout much of the work as a way to house memories and to house experiences, and kind of showing how these different experiences kind of accumulate and bump up against one another. For me, it's a way of depicting, you know, very literally and honestly, kind of how truth and reality evolves for us as an individual. And so the entire, I think, development is kind of hinging upon this influx and the way this information accumulates.